everybody, we're back, and it's part 3 of the urinary system. I'm Elisa, and I guess let's get started. So let's get started by going backwards. So here's a picture I drew in my last video, right, of the renal circulation. I just kind of wanted to go over it really quick. So let's see if we can switch color. Let's highlight, right, renal artery right here, and then renal vein coming in, right off of like say, or actually going out. I should put that way. There it goes. Ah, there it is. Vena cava and aorta, right? So like major like first stops on the line, right, are the kidneys. And then when they enter the kidney, they actually do this thing where they wrap around between that space between the cortex and the medulla, and then they get there by going up between like the renal columns, okay? So this is a very intentional layout, all right, because we got to filter that blood. Okay, let's go this way. Let's also change the paint color back to green, still like green. It's a happy color. Okay, kidneys are only like they're so tiny. They're really small, 0.4% of your body weight, but they like receive a lot of your blood. And actually they receive like over that, obviously a lot more over time. Renal circulation, renal artery divides into little segmental arteries that, are going to be traveling up through the columns and into the divide between the medulla and the cortex, right? And so those specific vessels are called the interlobular arteries, because remember, like a lobe is here's a pyramid, and like here's a pyramid, and like here's a pyramid in the kidney. And so like a lobe is like that whole area. That's like a lobe, right? So interlobular arteries are coming up in between each one of the lobes, specifically the pyramids. And so the arcuate arteries, like think of an arc, right? Not like an, it's like an arc. You know what I mean? So those kind of, that's what I'm saying. So they arc over the pyramids is what you would think of. Um, some people say arcuate. So yeah, it depends on what side of the pond you're on, which is totally fine, both right. Okay, cortical radiate arteries are going to be ones that actually go up into the cortex more specifically, right? So up into especially this nephron area. And they branch into super tiny, remember, arteries, which we call the arterioles, so the afferent ones. And so they specifically are going to be going to like one nephron each. And then like when they get there, like here, let me go artery. Okay, so like here's a little afferent artery. It's going to end up finding this thing called a glomerulus, right? And so it's like a globe, right? Think of globe, like the planet is a globe, right? And it's kind of this globe structure. And what ends up happening in there is like it's kind of gonna be all like tangly and all that. So we'll get into that a little bit more. So the blood is drained from the glomerulus by the efferent arterioles, right? So it's actually coming right back out. Most efferent arterioles are going to be what we call lead to the peritubular capillary. So like it's just a little bit different, a little bit bigger. And some of them are actually also going to go to the vasa recta, or the vein of the body, right? So it's a network of these blood vessels that are actually in the medulla proper. And we'll look at those in a picture because it's better than when I try to draw it. Capillaries then go to what we call the cortical radiate veins, and so or directly into the arcuate veins themselves. So that basically at the in the cortical region of the kidney is when we start kind of transferring it back over into the veins, and the veins like actually go back down the interlobular columns and back out. Okay, I should probably switch back to me. Okay, so the renal vein is going to empty directly into vena cava. So like, so yeah, like from aorta to vena cava, like that's some pretty direct stuff. Okay, all right. So right from aorta to vena cava. Okay, just no messing around with kidneys, just like straight from the source to the source, or back to the heart and the. Oh, good. Here it is. Okay. All right. So here we go. Here is our artery, renal artery, and we're going to jump in and we're going to segment. Right. We're going to divide. Segmenting becomes these segmental arteries. After we segment, we're going to start going up through the lobes, right? And so that's when the name changes again and they become interlobular, right? Or lobular, right? Think of it's like between the lobes. Okay, so after that happens, we're going to kind of come up in this arc pattern right here. And so this is the like an arcuate, right? Because we're making that arc shape. Here's another arc, right? And some of them are going to branch off into the cortical region, right? So we call that the cortical radiate because it looks like the sun, like it's like radiating sun rays, right? Think of it that way. It's like all these like radiating, right, little vessels. And then it's going to be either up here through the arcuate or through the cortical radiates that we start meeting back up with the veins, right? And so now that we're back in the veins, we're just going to go backwards, right? And we can go back down and collect. That was not the best choice of colors. There's like got to be a better color choice. Light blue highlighter, right? We're going to collect back down here, right? And this is all the cortical radiate veins, right? So this is one first stop, and then second stop is going to be here in the arcuate veins. And then when we leave those, we go back down through the interlobular veins, right? Right in between the lobes. And there's going to be segmental veins. And then we are going to meet again at the renal vein. And we're going straight down to Vena Cava Town. Okay. So it's just that it's pretty specific. And we'll look at why as we go through the nephron a little more. Okay. So in the cortex, the paratubular capillaries are going to branch off of the efferent arterioles, and they're going to supply the tissue near the glomerulus. Sorry. Um, and now we're going to get into this concept of the proximal and the distal convoluted tubule. So those are parts of this like really cool filtering structure called the nephron. Nephron, right? Really cool thing. Very complicated. Okay, but these are definitely parts of it. In the medulla, efferent arterioles give rise to basa recta, and so this is supplying the nephron loop, which kind of like does this like that. And so we're talking about this. This is like the nephron loop, and we also call it the new loop of Henle because there was a person back in the old days who discovered it, and their name was probably Henle, and that is the nephron loop that they discovered and described. Okay, here's a prettier picture. There's like more than one kind. Okay, there really like two main ones that you need to know about. And so remember when we talked about like here's a kidney and here's a pyramid, right? And the pyramids are located, that's a terrible pyramid, in the medulla, right? And this is like the medulla, and this is like the cortex, just like the brain, like the gray matter's in the cortex. Okay, that's the cortex region. So there's nephrons that are like really centered, kind of going into the renal pyramids. And then there are others that are like mainly in the cortex, right? So the ones that are mainly in the cortex, you guessed it, are cortical nephrons. And then the ones that kind of like are juxtaposed between the cortex and the medulla are called the juxtamedullary nephrons. Okay, so that's them. So juxtamedullary nephrons kind of dip down into the renal pyramid a little bit more. Okay, and right. So other things to know about. Right here it says PCT, that's the proximal convoluted tubule. And so it's like proximal because it's like basically just close to the glomerulus. That's what makes it proximal, right? Okay, and so it's going to, go through all of these different, basically salt and water concentration and pumps and stuff, and it helps filter out the things we want out of the blood and keeps in the things that we want in the blood and we're not going to get rid of yet. And when it does that, it actually goes through that nephron loop, right? The loop of Henle, and it's going to intersect with the vasa recta, right? So like this rect component of vasculature is what you would think of. And so like after we're done doing pretty much everything, not everything, but like pretty much everything, we're going to finally kind of dump what's left over and what's going to become urine into what we call the distal convoluted tubule, the DCT. And it's distal because it's the part of the tube that has gotten very far away from the glomerulus, right? So it's like proximal. It's the first thing it saw, right when it walked out the door, and then like went around here and went to the loop of Henle and like danced around over here for a while, and then oh, okay, we're really far away. Distal, far away, distal convoluted tubule, and that's what that is. The collecting duct is where all of these nephrons are going to put their final waste product, and we're going to collect here, and will eventually be what gets taken out, like to the ureters, right? Or the ureters. Um, so that's that. Yeah, and I mean, it's like the same thing here. Um, we have the distal, the proximal, and then like convoluted tubules, and we'll have like the distal convoluted tubule here as well. It's just kind of dealt with a little bit differently. Um, is that everything? So collecting duct. We already talked about arcuate veins and arteries. Peritubular capillary. Yeah, let's talk about peritubular capillaries. Let's talk about peritubular capillaries. Okay. Vasa recta in the juxtamedullary nephron, cortical nephrons, like, so peri means like not quite at, but or like close to is what you would think of. Tubular, so they're really close to like the distal convoluted tubule and the proximal convoluted tubule. They're like right in that neighborhood. So that's what you should think of for those. And I think that's everybody. Cortical radius, glomerulus, yeah, little globe, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. Um, okay, just probably should erase a little bit. Yeah, clear up pen markings. There we go, please. Okay, so yes, glomerulus up here. See how it's a little globe, and see how the arteries are kind of ducking in, and we're actually going back into arterial blood as well. So that's just kind of an important component to keep in mind. All right. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, and we'll come back to nephron because really there's some stuff it does, but that's the circulation of it. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I hope you all are out there having a great day. Bye bye.